right, so I just got done watching Uncharted for the second time, and I'm going to give a brief review over the things that I loved and the things I disliked about it because there weren't really things that I hated. There was just things that I thought could have been done better. Maybe whether it be CGI or casting choices or dialogue, one of those three. But I didn't hate anything about this movie. Um, but before I get into those, I'm going to give just like a brief overview of my overall experience with it, seeing it twice now, uh, and just my initial reactions and feelings overall towards this movie. Before I do, as always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content here on Answer Us, please like, subscribe, and leave that comment down below. Also, catch us on Minds and Rumble as well. Um, and please subscribe there as well. All right, so I'm just gonna get right on into my overall initial thought of it. First time I watched it, I was really impressed. I really was. I thought Tom Holland did a great job as Nathan Drake. I thought there was enough action that it kept me interested in the characters. I thought it it didn't ruin. It wasn't the movie wasn't ruined by my knowledge of the video games. Let's put it that way. It wasn't ruined by that. I felt like while it didn't live up to maybe the expectations I had, especially for something like the Uncharted series, series of video games, I felt like it didn't ruin. I wasn't ruined by the experience of it, like I am with some things, because there's some movies I watch that's based off video games, and I'm like, wow, they did it so poorly. They left out some things, or they ruined the video game experience for me. And this movie didn't. This movie didn't. Like I said, my knowledge of video games didn't ruin the movie, and it also didn't ruin. And my watching of this movie didn't ruin my love for the video games as well. In fact, it kind of did the opposite. Kind of made me excited for future Uncharted games, and made me want to go back and play some of the original Uncharted games. So I mean, overall, that's my opinion. Now, my second go around, I found a lot of flaws, a lot of things that bothered me, things that didn't uh, really the first go around didn't really affect me. But the second go around, it kind of aged upon me, I guess you could say, and that is a problem for me. I definitely like my enjoyment of it like went about halfway down in the second watching. All right, so now that I got my initial reactions done, let's get right on into the things that I liked about the film, and just simply because I want to be an optimist and I want to start with the things that was good before I really roast the things that are bad about this film. Like I said, at times this movie does capture the magic of the video games. At times I feel like I am watching a video game, like the cinematic version of that. It feels like that. It's enjoyable when it's in those moments. Now, that being said, I felt like a lot of the ones that were cut and pasted from the video games when it come to action sequences, I thought were done a lot better in the video games. But like I said, those sequences did not ruin anything for me. I wasn't like, oh man, this is terrible compared to what it was in the video game. I didn't feel that way. I did, like I said, I felt like there was enough there when it comes to, Tom Holland is Nathan Drake and the premise of this movie, and that could lead up to me being excited for a second one, with the hopes that it would be a major step up from the original. I kind of looked at this movie as a building block, I guess you could say. And overall, it's not a block that will crumble upon, future movies. It will hold up. I do believe that. Now, as far as Tom Holland, I thought was a really interesting choice. I'll admit, I personally did not want Tom Holland as Nathan Drake. I see why they got him, especially as a young one. I just would have preferred maybe a more grizzled, a more mature Nathan Drake. I don't feel like we needed a backstory and the beginnings. I felt like we could have started off with him, as that grizzled vet, and I thought that would have been probably better. Uh, I kind of was hoping for. I'll just put it out there. I was hoping for Jensen Ackles maybe to be Nathan Drake, an older kind of 30s, early 40ish kind of role, and then go from there. I thought that would be a lot cooler than showing the beginnings. And I think overall I was right about that, at least from my point of view. But I did think Tom Holland did a fabulous job as a young Nathan Drake. Now, as far as the villains are concerned, you have Santiago Mancada, and then you also have Braddock. I thought they were good enough. I don't I don't know if I like the idea, with I thought Antonio Banderas did a great job. I just feel like there was a lot of going between who's the henchman and who's the main villain kind of roles. And I kind of felt like they kind of went back and forth throughout this movie, really in a really sharp turns to a certain extent. I never felt like Antonio Banderas had control as Santiago Mancada, but they were interesting enough villains. They felt like Uncharted villains. Let's just put it that way. So I like that part about it. Now, as far as the action scenes, I have really hardly any complaint about the action scenes. I thought they were pretty good. I really did. I thought they were, except for the ones that were directly recreated from the video game. The scenes that were directly recreated from the video game uh, were not as polished as what the video game version of it was. But overall, they were fun. They were exciting. I didn't know what was going to happen from moment to moment. And I love films that are that way. I really, truly did not know who was going to live, who was going to die, what was going to happen next. And I thought that was amazing. I thought everything, when it come to the action scenes, I did feel like they were polished in that regard, just not as polished as what they were when they were recreating, action scenes from the video game that were polished more. So overall, I did actually truly enjoy that. Now, as far as the characters, the characters overall were fun. They I cared about their well being. I really cared about all their well being, to be honest, and even kind of the villains to a certain extent. Like it was I didn't want the villains to just be die halfway through the movie or anything like that. I wanted them to continue. I wanted to see where this story was going, and I think it didn't disappoint in that. I felt like whether it be villains or whether it be the protagonist of the story, I thought it was a fun overall uh, ensemble cast. Now, do I like I said, I've got some problems with the casting choice, but overall, I felt like the cast was entertaining enough that I stayed engaged and I cared about their well being, which usually is a sign that um, it's a good movie. And I think it is a good movie overall. Um, as far as the pace, like I said, there was no lulls for me in this movie. The beginning was just as interesting as the middle, and just as interesting as the end. Um, I felt like they did a fantastic job at pacing this film. I really, truly do. Overall, it was a fun globetrotting adventure. I tell you, a lot of it reminded me of like Indiana Jones or National Treasure or one of those kind of films. It really had that feel to it. It felt expansive. You never knew where they were going next, and you wanted to know, you wanted to follow them on their journey wherever it may lead to. And that was really cool. I thought overall, the them with the cross keys. I thought that was a really cool thing. I enjoyed the booby traps and all the things that they added to each particular point where they're looking for the treasure. I thought they did a really good job. I really truly did. It was, like I said, I couldn't wait to see the next place where they were going to head. I really truly couldn't. I enjoyed that aspect of it. And overall, the action scene or the finale action scene was amazing. That did not disappoint. That really, the climax of the film did not disappoint whatsoever. That's actually one part, even in the second go around, I still really truly enjoyed it. Was it a little bit fanciful? Of course it was, but it's a movie, and it's since it's based off of a video game, I can kind of let it some things slide, but I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, even seeing it twice, that particular part twice, the ending, I didn't get tired of it. I enjoyed it. I could probably see it 5 or 10 more times and not get bored of it. It was fun. Overall, that was probably the highlight of this film was the ending of it. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean the climax of the film was that good. Now for my favorite part. Now to get into the nitty gritty of the things that I felt like could have been done better. And one had to do with the lore. The one thing I love about Uncharted games, is the games really get you into the lore of the treasure that they are chasing, or the city, or wherever it may be. They really enhance the lore where that it gets you, just right for wanting to explore. Um, this film did not do that. The lore was weak at best. It was definitely did not make me be like, oh man, that is a treasure that I want to know more about. They did a terrible job. Maybe a flashback scene would have helped. I felt like they did a flashback scene, but it was one that I really could have done without. But I could have wanted to see, why the treasure was where it was, why the crew, placed it there, what happened to the crew. There was all these signs of, well, the crew and the captain didn't trust each other. I would have loved to maybe seen a little bit of that, maybe in a flashback. That would have been fun. But overall, I just did not get into the lore of this movie, and that was a pretty big failing, I thought, on its part. Now, as far as another thing that just, I don't know, just was a pet peeve of mine, was Drake and Sully's, how they met, and just how they interacted with each other throughout this film was really done poorly. Really done poorly. Spoiler alert here. Sully comes to Drake hoping that he knows that his brother had maybe told him something about this treasure. And then that was it, really. That was really, truly it. It wasn't because he thought, Drake was capable of finding the treasure himself or any of those other things. Really, it was just really poorly done in a lot of ways. Definitely left me wanting more. Definitely thought they did it better in the video games than what they did in this movie. I just didn't feel the connection between those two characters. I think to a certain extent that was kind of intentionally, but I just didn't buy it. I just didn't like that aspect of it as well. Now, as far as Mark Wahlberg as Sully, he did a terrible job as Sully. One, okay, first off, the casting of Mark Wahlberg, I have nothing against Mark Wahlberg. I think he's a great actor. But the casting of Mark Wahlberg as Sully is an insult to the character of Sully. There's nothing about Mark Wahlberg that reminds me of Sully in any form or fashion. He almost feels like a new character that is placed in here. His mannerisms, the way he goes about his sense of finding that connection with Drake in this film, which is Tom Holland, just wasn't there. He reminded me the Mark Wahlberg from every other movie that I've seen Mark Wahlberg in. It really felt like he was in cruise control and was just like, you know what? I know I'm in a movie that this doesn't fit, but I'm gonna, since I've done it in most my other movies, I'm gonna go ahead and continue on with these mannerisms that really just were bad. I mean, just they were just terrible in this movie. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Worst casting choice. If I wanted, I complained about, earlier in this video about wanting maybe a different Nathan Drake. At the end of the day, I felt like Tom Holland lived up to that expectation as a young one. He might not have been my first choice, but I guarantee you, Mark Wahlberg wouldn't even been my 100th choice for Sully. He did not fit that role at all. Could have found somebody much, much better, much more capable of fitting into those shoes. So yeah, that was something that just was bad. It was just bad. Another thing that I absolutely thought was terrible in this film, and they kept running it into the ground. And it was something even on my first watch that just annoyed the crap out of me. And that is the I don't trust you, you don't trust me. And then the backstabbing back and forth, back and forth. And it never felt like any of these characters except Nathan Drake were actually decent people. None of them, even the protagonists, never felt like they were people that that if I was in that story that I would trust. In fact, I almost kind of feel like the villains were more trustworthy in a lot of ways than what the heroes of the movie was, which was unbelievable. Like it was absolutely unbelievable. I got so sick and tired of the dialogue of I don't trust you and you don't trust me, and then it would go into like this standoff kind of thing. Somebody would steal something somebody else's, and just kept going back and forth between that, just over and over. And I'm like, yes, we get it. Y'all are all thieves. Y'all are all good at your jobs, and y'all don't like each other. We don't need this constant dialogue about this. I thought it was just really weak, really just a poor decision on the writers overall for keeping this amount of those kind of dialogue and those kind of situations in the film. um Overall, I mean, it's a poor man's national treasure, let's just put it that way. It really truly is. It has interesting quests that you get to see, but overall, it's not as entertaining as what National Treasure actually was. I would even put Nicolas Cage as Sully, because at least at the end of the day, I almost kind of felt like Nicolas Cage did a better job in National Treasure than what any of these guys did in Uncharted. I really do. It felt like they were, at least on National Treasure, it felt like they were actually going into situations that their expertise was absolutely and totally needed. It didn't feel that way in Uncharted. It felt like you could have interchanged any of these characters and you would have got the same result. And that just doesn't work in, whether it be video games, comics, or movies. You need characters that have a specific reason to be there, and these characters do not have this in this film. So, like I said, it's a poor man's National Treasure. It's a very generic version of National Treasure. It's still overall a fun movie I could watch maybe a couple more times, but it's not one that I'll ever be like intrigued about. Like after this, I'm not. I'm wanting to go play the video games because of some things that I saw in this, but I'm not like out there and being like, I need a sequel and I need it now. I hope there's a sequel. I really do. But if there's not, I'm really kind of cool with it. Um, I mean, the green screen, the CGI, that was probably, if there was another gigantic pet peeve, it was beautiful, but at the same time, you could tell that it was CGI. You could tell it was as clear as day. That could have been done a million times better. But overall, if you want my just honest opinion, I actually think this is a movie that if you're an Uncharted fan, go see. If you're an action adventure fan, go see. Um, but if you're probably a fan of the video games, you'll probably be slightly disappointed with the outcome of this film. I mean, it's just my point of view on it. But I was thoroughly entertained throughout this film, and that's saying something at least. There was no middle lull that usually is in action movies, or just movies in general now. But overall, I enjoyed it. Recommend seeing it. I would probably, if I had to rate it from 1 to 10, I'd probably give it like a 6, 6.5, simply because there was fun action scenes. I thought Tom Holland did a great job in this film. I enjoyed the villains, truly did. And there was enough, like I said, there was enough there for me to continue watching this film. But anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, guys, if I left something out, let me know as well. As always, thanks for watching, and y'all take care.